Can I ask you the same question I asked Ross? How does one decide what an ethical level of taxation is? I mean, let me go a little bit further. I mean, it strikes me that if before you've received your pay packet, you're giving half to the state, that creates an extraordinary relationship between the citizen and the state, where the citizen is implicitly there to work for the state. More than half his wage or his salary has gone in the first instance. Now, people say, well, that wasn't the case, it was 45%. But it's 45%, isn't it, plus the 2% national insurance surcharge. And that's, of course, before the taxpayer has bought a single thing. You know, once you buy a drink or a litre of petrol or anything that carries VAT, you're going to be paying much more in taxation. How do you decide what the ethical level of taxation is?
Well, this is the big challenge that politicians have always faced, of course. And so just on the 45%, and I'm not going to offer a view on whether it should have stayed or should have gone, but of course that only impacted on those earning more than £150,000 a year. And there in that issue is the nub of the problem, that it's fundamentally about the perception of fairness. And generally, the public wants to feel that it is fair. They recognise that certain public goods, if you like, have to be paid for. We need to pay taxes for those goods, but we need to feel that that's fair. And a progressive taxation system is what generally we've adopted in this country. And it's about, you know, that fairness question. So what the politicians have to do is justify the decisions that they make. It needs transparency. It needs good communication. It needs justification. You know, the politicians say they've got an objective in mind, fine, but is the means justified by that objective? And that's where the ethics comes in my opinion.
Well, you see, I think in a way we're confusing two things. One is the ethical position, what is the proper level of taxation? And the other is, as it were, what was the government's political judgment and did it get the political judgment wrong? And you could say that with all that's going on at the moment, to make this move was inept politically. But the level that they've gone down to was considered perfectly fair during all the years of Tony Blair's government, all the years that Gordon Brown was Chancellor. Now, it may be that they simply thought that the political impact of raising it again would be to put a question mark against Labour, as there had always been in the past. But, I mean, it has struck me as slightly curious that there is such outrage about returning to a level that was deemed acceptable across the party divide until pretty recently.
But there are no absolutes when it comes to ethics. Ethics is a judgment call. And I think what we've got here is, you know, the view of the public will change over time depending upon the circumstances. Currently, people are feeling under enormous pressure. The energy prices, of course, are at the heart of that. But then a decision is made by the Chancellor and perhaps not so well communicated, well, perhaps clearly not well communicated. The OBR's view was not taken into account or not publicised alongside it. And so we've seen a lack of confidence, if you like, a lack of trust in the markets. Now, that may sound all very theoretical and you know, it's difficult for people often to understand what's going on there. But the end result is mortgage interest rates rise, mortgages are more difficult to obtain. Is that an ethical outcome that the government wanted to achieve? So, of course, the government needs to take all these factors into account. But that's the question, did it take them into account? And was it thinking about the ethics as well as the optics?